for today, I mean, if we talk about the SEZs, so today this is going to be the third dialogue, and this time we actually sort of try to bring all of the uh, technical expertise through the lens of academia, since they have been working a lot around the technologies, around the low and green development space, mainly at both Pakistan as well as China's end, and the relevant experts are working around that. But before again going to the technical discussion and coming to Dr. Freha, let me very quickly set some of the housekeeping rules. Along with Zoom, the session is being live streamed on different social media platforms of SDPI, mainly Facebook and LinkedIn. And even after the session, the recording will be posted on SDPI's YouTube channel, and you're feel free to share it within your networks. And we also invite questions from all of our attendees who have joined us. As the session goes, you can write them in the chat or Q&A box, or we'll also sort of give you allocated time at the end if you want to sort of speak, and you can also sort of indicate that by clicking on raise hand tab on the right side. But I believe before any further ado, let's start with the formal welcome remarks, for which let me invite Dr. Fariha from STPI. Dr. Fariha is currently working as a research fellow, specializing in financial inclusion and governance, and is also leading SDPI's Center for Data. So with this, Dr. Fariha, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ved. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of STPI, I would like to welcome you all to the policy dialogue on the development of SEZs under CPEC, especially with an angle of learning from China's green model. So SEZs are pivotal in building the industrial capacity necessary for Pakistan's sustained economic growth, particularly through regional tax incentives and robust infrastructure. And under the CPEC framework, SCCs were planned spanning across all 4 provinces along with AJK, GB, and Federal Capital. And these SCCs are expected to play a crucial role in CPEC Phase 2, which focuses on industrialization to attract FDI and then develop joint ventures and enhance the Pakistan export-led manufacturing. However, there are grave challenges to the desired progress due to business environments, security threats, and other systemic issues. And now with CPEC 2.0 and BRI Plus on the horizon, it is imperative, rather of critical importance, to discuss the development trajectory of SEZs under CPEC. And further, we would like to explore this nexus by integrating the angle of green economy, especially building on the learnings from the China green economic model. And further, how can we foster low carbon development, since STPI is very actively working on the agenda of green economy, on just transition. So we would really like to explore this paradigm of multiple pillars where we actually build net CPEC 2.0 with the green economy and also with the what potential SEZ holds for Pakistan in the next phase. So it's very heartening to have this discussion in such a progressive manner and with such a stellar panel that has been lined up. So again, a very warm welcome to all the distinguished speakers, our online audience, and I would like to hand over to Ubed to invite the distinguished panelist. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Freha, for setting the scene. I mean, the way and highlighting the importance, and definitely will be very shortly coming towards the panelist. The way it is structured is that initially we'll be having a brief keynote from Mr. Hida Sayyed Saab, and then moving towards the panel discussion, which will be chaired by Dr. Arfa. So, but if just coming, Mustafa Saad, I'll just take a couple of minutes to just present just 3 slides, which actually sort of indicates what basically is an overview of SEZs in Pakistan. So I believe, so I mean, if we look at the total number, I mean, SEZs definitely, we had total count going on beyond 35, but if we look at the BOI approved SEZs, we do have number, I mean, everything around 22, in which since we're talking about the CPEC, so, I mean, under the CPEC, we actually had these 9 special economic zones, of which 4 were given this priority status of having these accelerated development. This includes the Rashakari Special Economic Zones, zone in Amaikpal Industrial State, Bostan, and also the Beijing. So that was basically, I mean, of the 9, these 4 were given these priority status. Very quickly, looking at the policy framework which actually Pakistan had, so it sort of started in with SEZ Act in 2012. That was to sort of provide this legal framework for the development, management, as well as operation of SEZs in Pakistan. And it was, again, I mean, the way the law was sort of designed was to sort of attract both domestic as well as foreign international funding by providing a very conducive environment for the industries, for the industrial and the economic growth. Then, I mean, definitely it had provisions, but with the SEZ Amendment Act that came in 2015, the idea was to sort of bring SEZs within Pakistan's some territory. SEZ ordinance was passed, and that was also sort of to see how this development would eventually take place in the, under the broader or interact with the new initiatives such as the one of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. How can implementation of SEZs also facilitate can be facilitated through those? So, I mean, this ordinance was also sort of to, I mean, streamline the governance infrastructure, improve some of the incentive mechanisms, provide this legal and procedural clarities as well. And then both in 2020 and 2021, we introduced some of the more incentive schemes, packages, and the whole idea behind all these developments was to sort of enable, provide a more supportive, provide a more enabling environment for the investments to come in and how this whole development can actually be accelerated. And eventually, going on to 2023, we introduced the one-stop service bill. The whole idea was to again streamline anything to and expedite the establishment and operations of industries within these SEZs. And I mean, the whole idea behind that was to sort of the procedure, bring the procedural simplifications. If we again very quickly look at the governance structure, then definitely at the over the federal with the within federal oversight, definitely BOI is there, BOI secretaries, and then there's also an approval committee that was to be headed by the Prime Minister or any of his normal office representatives. And then at the federal level, definitely there are provincial special economics SEC authorities such as KPSMA, there's in Punjab and BOITs as well, and then particularly for again this SEZ committee as well for keeping that check and balance rule, and particularly for the SEZ coming under the CPEC, there was has also been a very important role coming off the CPEC, not in the JCCs within the CPEC, and again even within the BOI, there's a special dedicated cell developed for that, and definitely how they sort of interact with the developers and the SEZs in itself as well. So previously, I'm not talking about 2024 because in 2024 there have been a lot of changes, which we'll definitely talk as the discussion goes forward. But initially, we actually had a lot of incentives, still have a lot of incentives for the SEZ development. We sort of started for foreign investment. We came up with these markup support at 50% on the loans taken in Pakistan's currency. There has been the provincial clause on installments that were for the foreign investors. One-time custom duty exemption was there. 10 years SEC income tax exemptions were there. And I believe as we go forward, we'll be talking in depth more about these incentives, and the follow-up study that SCPI will be publishing in a month. It will also sort of contain a lot of details for the market investors coming in the definitely in 2024 when sort of Pakistan came under the IMF program, there have been some not I wouldn't say definitely not challenges. That's how to sort of to decide how to move forward within the fiscal constraint space. So we'll be discussing that some of the bit. But just the last slide. So I mean, definitely Dr. Fariha has already highlighted some of the opportunities that exist because of the SEZs and what's the basic purposes. I mean, ranging from attracting the investments to economic diversification. They help build that technological capacity, bring in more mature technologies, technology transfer component. That's something that's to play a very important role. Definitely, one of the very key challenges which Pakistan is currently facing is that the energy demand, particularly from the productive sectors such as industries, that is not growing, and that is where the importance of developing these SEZs sort of come in. So again, if we talk about significance, definitely that's really important. But if we look at the overall landscape, then one thing which we sort of need to realize is that the SEZ's development in Pakistan has also been associated with some of the with multiple challenges as well. And I mean, the whole idea behind this discussion is to sort of understand how to address those challenges and provide that way forward. I mean, we all fully understand that there has been some policy inconsistencies, the regulatory delays and extended timelines that have been some of the issues when we especially look at the SEZs that were to be developed in CPEC. But I believe very confidently as Pakistan ventures into CPEC 2.2, that is more focused towards the industrial development, and then definitely these are going to make a lot of more sense. We'll definitely, after this discussion, we'll be in a very final shape to pitch up our findings. But yeah, this was just to sort of set up a brief scene. So with this, let me move towards our experts, and firstly inviting Mr. Mustafa Haider Sayed for his interventions. Mustafa Saab, definitely, we all fully understand how important greening of the CPEC on one hand is. At the same time, uh, how to sort of how SEZs plays an important role, especially when we talk about SEZs within the CPEC. China definitely has to play an extremely important role in the whole debate as well. So, with this, coming to you for your interventions and explaining us work that you have been doing and how you see the way forward through this as well. So, yeah, over to you, Mustafa sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth, for putting this together and inviting me for this keynote. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Arfa Iqbal, who's a North Star in Pakistan-China Economic Cooperation for many years, mashallah. And I look up to her and will continue to look up to her for guidance as we move forward. And everyone else, such a pleasure to be here. I think that when we talk about SEZs, we have to first take a helicopter view of why SEZs are developed, and SEZs and why they thrive in certain places and why they don't thrive in certain places. And then we can talk about green SEZs under CPEC. So I think firstly, and I think Dr. Arfa's arrival at the Board of Investment was, when in LA, I was reading when they couldn't put out the fires, then they got the best people, because when it reached the real crisis state, then they got the elite fire trucks and the firemen to put out the fires because people were unable to function normally. So I think we have to understand when we talk about CPEC, these SEZs, how those SEZs can be driven by Chinese investment. Why will Chinese invest in those SEZs? Will they invest in those SEZs? Why will they invest in these SEZs compared to those in Bangladesh, compared to those in the ASEAN countries, compared to those in Batang in Indonesia and in Sihanoukville in Cambodia? You see, so we have to look at that. And I think on the outset, I would like to say that the prerequisite for this conversation and any conversation, SEZs, is how competitive are we? How competitive is our market? How competitive is our policies relatively to our neighbors? So when an investor will decide and choose a destination, now it will be based completely and exclusively on how competitive we are compared to others. And this is a conversation that we've had in the past as well, and SDPI was part of that SOEs now from China are no longer investing in Pakistan. The second phase of BRI is being driven primarily by the private sector. So these are market-based decisions which are now taking place, as opposed to the first phase of CPEC when Dr. Arfa was the economic counselor in Beijing, which was SOE driven. Those were SOE driven, Sinosure insured, Exim and China Development Bank backed by debt equity, And at that time, China itself was economically at a much stronger place than it is now. Right now, as we know that the transformation in China, economic transformation, took place through the real estate boom. That was the key driver, one of the key drivers. And the real estate today in China is, facing significant challenges. Challenges that it has not seen since the opening up and reform. So we have to look at the key actors, where they are right now and where they were 15 years ago, right? Because that is what is going to determine their future course of behavior and interplay with other states when you talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. So for the first time, the bond yields of China are, worse off than Japan's. This has happened, and particularly the 10-year bond yields, for those of us who are following China closely, they are worse off than Japan's for the first time. And a lot of people are drawing parallels of China's economy with Japan's economy when Japan's crash happened. But I'm not saying there'll be a crash in China. Of course, inshallah, I'm sure they'll be able to salvage the situation. But this is the current, I'm giving the macroeconomic picture, what's happening in China and what kind of outbound investments we see. Second, what we've seen is when you talk about SEZs, that the key investments under the BRI are no longer political decisions. They are investing, and the outbound investments are going to countries which are not in the close friend circle of China anymore. For example, Vietnam. Key photovoltaic assembly lines now, and the companies of Guangdong province, which we know is the most prosperous province of China, and has the richest companies. The number one place of Guangdong companies' outbound investment is Vietnam. Saudi Arabia, Thailand, Malaysia. These are the top 4 places where they are relocating to. These are the countries. As of November 2024, when I visited and I got a presentation from the Guangdong government. So where are we? Question rises that we are in a green CPEC seminar right now. So where are we in this whole scenario? I think that when we talk about green SEZs, there are 2 things. One is, do we have a green supply chain? Because green SEZs isolated तो नहीं होगा ना जी कि हमने बड़ा fancy है जी green SEZ लगा लेते हैं. उसकी integration क्या है? Vertical integration क्या है? Horizontal integration क्या है? Where are we in terms of the green value chain? Are we in the green value chain? Are we in the green supply chain? Do we even have a place in it right now? And if we do, then it makes sense to have a green SEZ. And if we are not in it, first we need to get in the act. We need to get a foot in the door, which I think we can. And inshallah we will. But from right now, as of right now, I think we need to have more R&D, because if you look at any country, host countries which are hosting green SEZs, they have their own strong, robust mechanism of manufacturing, research, design of green products. And also, not only hardware like solar or solar cells or things like that, or modules, but also green financial products. Because those green financial products are enablers for investors to go there. And as we know, China's famous panda bonds, which we talked about many times, green bonds and multiple other bonds. So when you talk about, a lot of the times we say, yes, it's a great idea to have a green SEZ. This would be amazing. Let's announce a green SEZ. But I think there's a lot of context to it. There's a lot of context. I think that some of the things, when you talk about industrial parks and SEZs, 10% of China's industrial parks are eco-industrial parks. Dr. Arfa, I'm sure, has also visited some of them because she's a regular visitor also to China. And those eco-industrial parks, what are some of the key things apart from what it's producing is it's a very efficient and sustainable SEZ in terms of water reusage, in terms of solid waste reusage. I was reading that some of those eco-industrial parks have 10%, 90% water usage, and similar percentage of solid waste reusage. It's not dumped, it's recycled, And then what are some of the reasons those eco-industrial parks are successful is, I have a few points here. Strong governmental support with concrete standards. So there's a standard which has been made by the government supporting those industrial parks, and they have to meet that criteria to actually fall into it. And those are enforced, those standards. And then they have a very good linkage with the private sector. There are a lot of public-private partnerships in those green eco-industrial parks. A lot of public-private partnerships. Those are essential for it's not only led by government or only private. There are a lot of private-public partnerships. Then there are also incentives for technical assistance. For example, NDRC has provided financial subsidies to help qualified parks to transform themselves into EIPs. So some industrial parks, which are not yet eco-industrial parks, and they want to fall into that category because they are being given special incentives, and maybe they can make more money. So NDRC, the National Development Reform Commission, is driving that forward. So industrial parks can then graduate to eco-industrial parks. And then there's, of course, what we talked about, green innovation and supply chains, and particularly the ones on the coast, on green research and development and on adopting green technologies, as well as encouraging relocation of related firms to create industrial symbiosis. So that R&D aspect and angle is there. And then if it works, that symbiosis of recreating that in other places successful along the coast, because as we know, the most prosperous area, the mainland China, is the coastal areas of China, which are the most successful. And then what I already said, green finance market, because the green finance market has to supplement these green SEZs. Otherwise, you'll have a green SEZ which will be empty. So you have to have the software infrastructure, the hardware infrastructure, the R&D, and this cannot be thrust upon any developing country from outside. Here you go, this is a green SEZ. It has to be, in my opinion, it has to be a bottom-up approach. The market, the industry, the local business clusters have to be mature enough and ready to actually set up a green SEZ. And I think before green industrial park, we have to have a successful industrial park. Then we can go into green industrial park. It's like a person who's never had a phone, but you say, we'll give you the iPhone 16. First, give the person a regular phone. Let him see how to, or let him, how to function a regular smartphone. Then give them the iPhone 16. So this is my 2 cents on this. And I think let me be very candid, with the permission of Ubaid Zia, who's hosting this conference. And Dr. Arfa is also very privy to my views. But I have full confidence that under her leadership, these reforms will take place, inshallah. Because she understands China very well, she understands Pakistan. We have to firstly have the right locations for the SEZs. That is the basic prerequisite. I think that choosing Rashakai, for example, for having an SEZ was not the most apt decision. I think it was a politically motivated decision, in my opinion. If you look at SEZ's establishment in any successful country, including but not limited to China, they're close to ports. Suzhou is right next to Shanghai. It's 1.5 hours, 1 hour from Shanghai. Shenzhen, why was Shenzhen chosen? Because it was next to Hong Kong. Hong Kong was a very mature business market. The British had done a lot of business from Hong Kong. So Shenzhen was a quick success. Why is Hainan being promoted so much by the federal government? It's port. So, you have to have them next to a port. And secondly, I think we also have to have a SEZ body which has constitutional power. It is not overseen by the executive because it cannot be subject to political maneuvering and affected by change in governments. Like NEPRA, for example, chairman of NEPRA is appointed. No one can change the chairman of NEPRA. It's a constitutional body. It has to be a constitutional body to oversee, give executive decisions. Those executive decisions have to be enforced. And I think we have to have a constitutionally backed body that is uninterrupted in its tenure and no one can interrupt. So I think this is my humble suggestion if you really want to get stuff done. Otherwise, we will attend many more of these seminars. Either Pakistan China Institute will be hosting it or SDPI. But these are my 2 cents.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mustafa Saab. The points very well noted, especially you talked about that the key enabling parameter would be bringing in the readiness within Pakistan to sort of attract these models, how to make the markets more competitive, how to make, enable the green finance market, incentive, institutional setups, vertical horizontal arrangements that are need to be there, and fully understanding the way the CPEC eventually has shifted again, definitely when we move towards CPEC 2.0, it's not the G2G, but it's more of the B2B engagement that are going to happen. So thank you so much, Mustafa Saab. Points very well noted. With this, we'll be moving towards a panel discussion. And let us first again take interventions from friends of Pakistan from China. We're very pleased to have been joined by Professor Dr. Peng Wang. Dr. Saab, thank you so much for joining us, I believe. So again, what we really look forward to hearing from you is that if you can sort of brief, since we have seen China as one of the really good models, so what best practices do exist? But specifically talking about the question that we actually want is, what are some of the leading technological innovations and practices happening within China's green SEZs that has significantly contributed to their success in promoting a sustainable development? And also, since we're talking about the integration of, localization of solar PVs, renewable energies into SEZs, and what can other countries, including Pakistan, can learn from China? As I believe Mustafa Saab has already highlighted a very good perspective of China, what is happening in what is the need of Pakistan. So perhaps based on any of the best practices within China, if you can sort of brief us, and after that we'll come towards Dr. Ishan. But first, Professor Dr. Peng, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my honor. Professor Ubich, can you hear me? Professor, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will start a presentation, and thank you for your inviting me. It's my honor to introduce maybe some our opinion and my understanding for the SEZ. I think that it's like Professor Mustafa. He is very familiar with China's like industrial park or some eco industrial park or low carbon industrial park. I think that like for Pakistan, in the future, the SEZ development, maybe China's some industrial park development, maybe as a reference, and like you talk about the FDI, maybe not only from China, maybe from the world. So I think from my opinion, my research, I will introduce like the Guangdong province is as China's national low carbon pilot, and after 2000, Guangdong has the biggest GDP province in China, certainly in China, a lot of like I see industrial park like SEZ in Pakistan. But I think that's the before from 1980s, from the China's reform and open policy. After that, China has like very actively to attract more foreign investment and more like the foreign funds from global world. And yes, still from the FDI, many technologies, the new industries and like infrastructure are all development. And I think that's the help China building and building very basic economy for development. But for the I think for like the next 10 years or after 2000, the global world more focusing on the climate change and SDG, like Professor Mustafa said, the just transition or like a renewable energy transition. So after that, Guangdong as a province and Guangdong has as the national pilot start this green transition and yeah, reduce carbon emissions and still development renewable energy. So I think maybe I will introduce like some Guangdong's like the GDP and Guangdong's has the policy to accelerate green production methods, and still we has issued the policy for the carbon charges, and we still develop the carbon emission market, and still like especially for Guangdong province, it has the offshore and has a long coast, so we actively to develop the clean energy like the wind power and the solar panel, and still the battery like this. And as the pilot province in China, it has developed from the provincial level, from the city level, and still from the county level. We all start some like the low carbon industrial park pilot. Still the low carbon building, low carbon in industry, and still low carbon building, low carbon transport, and still focusing on some the communities to try to do some low carbon technologies. And after that, that's the policy. That's the policy framework. Yeah, it has the this policy. This policy not only will function in the provincial level, it will still according different city or different local level. They will make this carbon peaking and carbon neutral policy target and until 2060. So it is a very long strategy, and from the city level and from the sector level, and still the government has started some projects that will help the industry to the low carbon transition, and in the future for the future the infrastructure will will realize the carbon reduction, and that's our different policy framework, and certainly from the government level, and when some company or for FDI, if they want the new investment, they will according this carbon reduction target, and they will realize this target. Like the BASF from Germany and some American companies, the Union company, they has investment in Guangdong. They needed to they would like to building the zero carbon factory and very they will using the green electricity, and still they will use try to using the green hydrogen like this technology. And we can see that that's some our targets from different aspects, like the energy efficiency, energy structure, and still the carbon sinks. As the time limit, I will not talk more about the policy. Still, for this different area, they has the government has published 31 measures in 9 areas. That's the for the key sectors, and how to warrant this technology will be using in different area. The policy, the guaranteeing supporting measures has been executed, like how to strengthen the green innovation, how to improvement the carbon sink capacity, and still the communication. So we think that is a very big challenge. But yeah, this certainly will help the industry will more upgraded in the future, in the next 20 or 40 years. Like the how to make this technology will be underground. It is still some reform initiatives, and we can see that the different pilot projects, like the green low carbon industry cultivation and the low carbon energy transformation, like for the different air and steel sector, the cement sector, or steel, and some how the paper making sector, how to resource recycling, how to help this factory to reduce the carbon emission, and still how to reduce the air pollutants. They will like our institute and the government and still the industry, we will together to implement some project to have them to form the capacity and to promote the technology innovation in this area. And that's the different actions for carbon peaking. It will include from the industry and from the building, for energy system, and still the transportation, land use restructuring, and still the ecological carbon sink. That will help the different industrial area or some industry cluster. They will more coordinate each other and together to implement this technology. Yeah. So that's some our some the pilot projects, especially the coal power, and still some we can see that some the very high energy intensive industry, they will do some if they want to, because we implemented like the carbon control and the carbon intensity control policy. So if this country, if this factory want to more production,
Yes,
they need
yes, Dr. Pang. Thank you. I believe, just in interest of time, if you can please conclude in a minute. Yeah, we're running.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. That's just showing this picture, and I think that's we can talk more
discuss it.
about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pang, for highlighting the key initiatives taken in the Ganzhou province and how you're sort of promoting these green developments. So, coming to Dr. Ishan. Dr. Ishan, you have already been working around the sustainability governance. So, I mean, what role? I mean, in the context of China, what role do you see green SEZs play in China's broader strategy for environmental governance and sustainable development? And how can these lessons be applied to developing countries such as Pakistan that are developing these SEZs as part of their own development goals? So with this, Dr. Ishan, over to you. Yeah, thank you for joining us all the way from UK and with the time difference.
Thank you, Beth, for inviting me to join this wonderful webinar and also for your questions. So as a political scientist and also governance scholars, I'll be happy to share some broader thoughts on the role of green special economic zone in China's overseas engagement strategy. So let me start with the special economic zone in general. So we know that the SEZ have played a crucial role in China's economic development over the last 4 decades. Therefore, China has a lot of experience to use a special economic zone to attract high quality investment, facilitate technology transfer, and also promote innovations. And we have already heard some examples. So such experiences can obviously be very helpful for other developing countries, such as Pakistan, and in the context of CPEC more specifically. We have already seen various Chinese actors are willing to share such experiences and use SEZ as a model to support development of Pakistan. So I think we don't need to mention. The question now is really to think about how we can best use this tool. This leads us to think about the role of green special economic zone. Especially more recently, we know, especially in the last decades, that Chinese government has put strong emphasis on promoting green development in the SEZ. So one example is in 2016, the Ministry of Commerce, MOFCOM, established the Green Partnership of Industrial Parks in China, which consists of 36 special economic zones to develop guidelines and share knowledge and also best practices regarding sustainability transition, especially on net zero. And Professor Wang also has shown some examples, some key areas of green special economic zones in practice. In the meantime, this Green Partnership was also a founding member of the Global Alliance of SEZ, established 2 or 3 years ago with support of UNCTAD. So obviously we can see that China has a strong intention to promote the model of green special economic zone globally and share its experiences and use SEZ as an important tool in the strategy of a Green Belt and Road Initiative. So I think this brings us to think about what are the kind of challenges, because we know the green SEZ can be an opportunity for China to further its green overseas investment. But what are the challenges? I think obviously there is the issue of scale, because I think China can easily attract mobilize lots of funding to have large scale SEZ. This may not be the case in many other developing countries, but I think more important, I want to highlight or just throughout some key challenges in my view, especially from a governance perspective. So I think one is to think about how do we define green? So whether we have clear criteria, so what kind of green technologies that we want. So there's not clear in many cases when we have this idea or plan to develop some green SEZ. So which green aspect that our Pakistani stakeholders want. I think we need to think about also core benefits among economic, environmental, and social goals in order to really pursue sustainable development. So what green technology are most needed and wanted in the country, and what are the social benefits these green technologies can generate? I think this sometimes we also need to take into account the local context in different regions that relates to also the question that Mustafa mentioned about the location. And also I think the question of what benefits to local communities. So if we consider these issues when designing project, I think green SEZ will be able to significantly advance just transition that we mentioned earlier in Pakistan. And the other issue, I think it's also about the support that the host countries or host government can offer. This including policy support from the government, the state, but at the same time also the relationship, how to manage the relationship with non-state actors, non-state stakeholders. So if there are any kind of rigorous mechanism of consultation to build trust and also share benefits with other stakeholders, I think identifying clear targets and setting up some institutional arrangement would be very important and even crucial to develop effective green special economic zone. So I think in that sense, I think there is a process of learning by doing. I think it's nice that we have started to think about introducing green special economic zone in Pakistan under CPEC 2.0 in Pakistan. I think the question is like how we can start some engagement and then trying to start this process. So I very look forward to some kind of experiments and innovation. I think this is a very promising area. So I hope that we can join our effort to promote green special economic zones in CPEC. I'll stop here.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Ish, and especially highlighting the point on how do we actually define green, and that's actually going to be really important. And I believe this is a point where we move towards the representatives from Pakistan and academic stakeholders that we have from Pakistan, who will be able to sort of shed very good light on this. So let me first come to Professor Dr. Saeed Badshah, who's currently the Dean, Faculty of Engineering and Technology, the National Islamic University, Islamabad. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. So I believe first would be, I mean, if you can sort of highlight what are the opportunities of integrating renewable energy within the special economic zones that are there under the CPEC, and what role can technological innovation play in ensuring the efficiency and sustainability of these zones? So, sir, your interventions around this, and if you can also sort of highlight in terms of scaling the renewable energy within SEZs, what are some of the specific technological and market-based barriers that can also sort of be addressed, and what strategies can be adopted for that? So thank you so much for joining us with this. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth, for inviting to this webinar. As you mentioned in your first slide, definitely there are many challenges, and at the same time, there are many opportunities for integrating renewable energy in green SEZs in Pakistan. So if we talk about the challenges, the primary issue is the high initial cost that is associated with setting up renewable energy infrastructure. Investment in solar panels, wind turbines, and energy storage system require a substantial capital. And that is definitely a significant barrier in Pakistan cash-strapped economy. And if we talk about private sector investment, as highlighted by Dr. Heather, private sector investment could alleviate some of this burden, but it is also challenging to attract them. Why? Because investors see it risky and there are not enough financial incentive to encourage them. Another major obstacle is the inconsistency in regulatory and policy framework. That is also highlighted by Mustafa Heather. So the absence of clear, stable, and supportive energy policies coupled with slow bureaucratic processes discourage the adoption of these renewable energy technologies in SEZs. And I will endorse him that a strong constitutional body is the need of time if you want to implement such policies in Pakistan. So one of the another issues is if you want to implement renewable energy technologies in these SEZs, then land availability is also an issue, because renewable energy projects like solar and wind farm require extensive land areas, and that conflict with other developmental priorities within SEZs. And also these technologies are weather dependent, so there is a challenge that regarding the the lack of affordable and efficient energy storage solution is a problem in Pakistan. So that also make it difficult to supply a consistent energy supply to these SEZs. Also, our existing grid infrastructure in Pakistan is another hurdle. Similarly, the shortage of skilled workforce who can design, install, and maintain these renewable energy systems. This is a big gap which can limit the scalability of renewable technologies and the ability to deploy the efficiency in SEZs. Now, if we talk about the opportunity, definitely the biggest advantage is the potential to provide a cheaper and more sustainable energy supply in long run. And by adopting renewable energy technologies, as I mentioned, industries within SEZs can significantly reduce their operational costs, which will definitely improve their overall profitability and competitiveness. And utilizing local renewable energy resources, like we are very rich in solar, and similarly at some places in wind, that can help to reduce the dependence on imported fuels, which can enhance the country's energy security and lowering the exposure to volatile global fuel market. Definitely, as mentioned by our Chinese colleague, that this will create employment opportunity if we use our indigenous infrastructure. It will promote job creation in various sectors, including the manufacturing of renewable components, system installation, and ongoing maintenance. And the main important one, the critical benefit of this alignment of renewable energy adoption with global sustainability goal is that by reducing greenhouse gases, as mentioned by our colleague, the reducing green gas emission and fostering environmentally friendly practices, green SEZs in Pakistan can improve their global competitiveness and attract international business that prioritize sustainability in their supply chain. And by that, when integrating renewable energy, we can also attract international investors and companies that are committed to sustainable practices.
Yes.
And just I will close that, as mentioned by my colleague, that developing green SEZs with renewable energy infrastructure demonstrate Pakistan's commitment to sustainability and making these zones attractive destination for foreign direct investment and innovation and adoption of advanced technology. By focusing energy, by encouraging the innovation of the new technologies, we can focus on energy efficiency. Similarly, we can improve our grid management, modernize its industrial sector, and ensure the long-term reliability of the energy sector.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Badsha, for your wonderful interventions. We will come to you for any questions at a later stage. And but just in the meanwhile, just to request to all our speakers that there are a lot of questions in the chat box. So once you get time, you can also sort of type in your answers. But with this, coming to our second last, before going to the panel, coming to our second last speaker, Professor Dr. Mohammed Abid, the Director of ComSET, sir. You have, again, definitely you yourself have a lot of engagements with the Chinese, a lot with the academic institute. There's a very strong collaboration of concepts with those institutions. So especially when we talk about technology transfer between China and Pakistan, that can very effectively take place, particularly in the context of renewable energy and the development of sustainable, again, SEZs in it, are also sort of to play a very important role. So perhaps a question would be how that can actually be facilitated through SEZs. And while when we're talking about, I believe Badsha Sahab also mentioned that localization of renewable energy technology is critical for Pakistan's long-term sustainability. If you can sort of highlight how can Pakistan address the challenge, or what should be the potential solutions for enabling this localization of solar PV or EVs within the special economic zones of Pakistan. So with this, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. It's really a very needy topic to discuss at this time. When we have, I used to say, as my colleagues mentioned, the gaps are always opportunities. I don't say these challenges, but these are just gaps. And when we talk about the SEZs, I am really appreciate the effort of Professor Peng Bang when he mentioned about the implementation of 6 key areas, So we have to decide what our gaps are in terms of technology transfer in this special area. And I also appreciate the comment by Dr. Yishan Sun about this learning by doing. Actually, we have a lot of potential in Pakistan. You know, the things have been discussed about the CPEC and the special economic zones, and especially over the last couple of weeks, we are discussing the special economic zone, even Texla Wa and the Hatar area as well, to establish one because of the cluster of the academic institutions in this area and the potential of working into the multidisciplinary areas ranging from engineering, technology, and the social sciences as well. So whenever we talk about this special economic zone, I have been engaged with the Chinese universities since 2005, when we are working on to different areas like advanced design manufacturing. And the technology is what we are looking forward. And at the moment, solar is quite a number one in Pakistan, which is implementation in Pakistan. So this is one of the technology which is coming up, but not in a very organized manner, I used to say. So we have to. Number two is the micro hydropower plants, because we are working with the universities like we are working with the Gilgit University and then the Skardu universities. So they have the huge potential in the micro hydros and the big mega structures. And recently I came yesterday from Hyderabad and the Karachi area, where the wind is a big potential in addition to the solar as well. In addition to that, we are working with the Chinese universities in the area of maritime. So it's a huge potential to tap into. So whenever we talk about this technology transfer, I used to say the one will is from the government collaborations, the bilateral agreements on the individual basis, constitutional basis. But in order to, we have to work into the with a mission-oriented approach, so that we started now. So if we keep discussing, I don't think that things will not move forward in the. But when we start doing it, then this economic, all these the terms we are using will be in place. I think if we talk by many my of colleagues in terms of whenever I talk about, I always talk about the academic perspective. So in academic perspectives, we have the I used to say establishing joint research and development R&D centers, especially for example in solar, it should be a focus on the solar, and the wind, it should be focused on the wind. So, and micro hydropower plants, so we can talk about these in the in centers, in the specific centers, so that we get something out of it, and that will actually enable us for the technology to bring in terms of the local capacity and the knowledge sharing. Otherwise, if we'll keep work, every university is doing all these things, I think we are not reaching to the level where we should reach. And the third thing is the joint ventures and investments in the local manufacturing. You see, when we innovate something, it does not is translated to the local community, to the manufacturing industry. And for that, we have to have a focus on the policy and institutional support as well, as our colleagues mentioned. Last thing, which I think the 2 points are important, is the infrastructure development and financial mechanism. You see, in academia, we have some small projects from funding from the government organization like HEC and others, but that does not give you the full tangible solutions. It's a very small money. You can make some small, but learning from the Chinese institutions, because we are working with them, they are very open in terms of the capacity building, in terms of student and faculty exchange, which gives you the and that should be again mission oriented. We have to be specific about these areas, and talking about when we talk about the technology, because they are going to the learning from the implementation in China. So I think they can bring all those terms like green energy and green all financing. So I think this is the way forward. We have to work not only with China, but rather I will say regional cooperation and knowledge sharing, as one of the colleagues mentioned about the ASEAN and SEO collaborations. I think this will bring a fast-paced technological transfer by developing human resources and by doing it now. I think this is the right time we should start doing it. As Mustafa mentioned, we keep discussing, does not help. Let's start doing it as with a mission-oriented approach. I think we will do it. And last comment is, it's not only I am sitting into the Punjab. I think we should be working with the other institutions in Sindh, in KPK, in even there is a huge potential into the GB, Gilgit Baltistan, and to work together to bring to make these specific centers to address these issues. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Abid, very extremely enlightening. And thank you for providing that clarity on what needs to go forward and how the collaboration should go forward. So thank you so much. And I believe just taking lead from one point that you mentioned around the maritime, I believe we're very pleased to have with us Commodore Imranul Haq Saab as well, who's director from director in Bahia University. Just so he'll be last panelist for the first round before we move towards panel chair. So thank you so much, Commodore Imran, for joining us. So I mean, as per discussion, talking a lot about the green development, if you can sort of shed your interventions in this field, and more importantly on providing more of a way forward from this point, because again, let's take sort of the advantage of having the presence of Dr. Pa with us as well. But I'll just request to sort of keep the interventions to 5 minutes or 7 minutes and mainly discussing the way forward. So that would be extremely helpful. Yeah. So with this, over to you, Dr. Commodore Imran. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Obed, and thank you very much for SDPI for giving me chance to share my views. Can you see my screen?
If you can just turn on the slide share as well. The slide share is not turned on. Yeah. From the bottom right, yes. And just requesting Commodores to please keep the interventions roughly around like 5 to 6 minutes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will start with the Quranic ayat, which translated into English, that Allah has given mankind this world to see how it behaves with the world. And this ayat is very important to understand, and while analyzing the questions given by the SDPI, which is on the screen, please keep that ayat in mind. Now, coming towards the first question, what are the knowledge gaps and implementation of the green SEZ? Going toward the history, by the end of 2017, over 500 national SEZ, including 7 comprehensive SEZ, 19 new areas, 219 economic and technology zones, that and so on. It comes in the China, and following the China open door policy. And then by the end 2018, it's important to see that China industrial parks account for 60% of the country's GDP, with national ones alone contributing 23%. This is important to understand, and 60% of the exports. Now, when we see the Chinese model, the SEZ have also become a high incidence of environmental problems. So in 2000, year 2000, the first industrial park, which is Guizhang sugar, that come up, and as it was also mentioned by the Mustafa Saab. And then the 3 government initiatives were taken. That's EIP demonstration program, green industrial parks, and circular transformation. And all these are translated into the 93 EIPs, 129 green industrial circular transformation parks, and 119 green industrial parks. All these programs were designed to motivate and help industrial parks to improve environmental and economic performance. Then the green development policy in SEZs, mainly the Chinese green development policy, there were pollution supervision, green development encouragements and enterprises in the zone, sewage treatment, the strict supervision and pollution discharge of chemical industries, and the policy encouraging enterprises to save energy and reduce environment, which other speakers were also talking about. That these resulted into the industrial water reuse rate in the park, and has increased up to 90%. And then reuse of solid waste, which increased up to the 94.1%, and energy consumption per unit decreased by the 32.7%, which is sort of contributor towards the circular economy. Now, coming towards the specific question of the knowledge gaps, when we see talk in perspective of Pakistan, the stakeholders engagements is very important. With the commencement of CPEC phase 2, stakeholders base enhanced from government to government to business, which requires knowledge sharing and training in Pakistani stakeholders, quoting Chinese successes, which I shown to the previous slides, to improve green processes, business benefits, and dividends of circular economy need to be inculcated. The another gap is technological expertise. Though CPEC project enhance Pakistan capacity in renewable energy, areas like agriculture, CO2 signature, electric vehicles, especially the battery production, water waste management, maritime and steel sector are yet to get benefited from the Chinese SEC green transformation. And then the environmental standards. Implementation of stringent environmental standards helped the Chinese SEZ green transformation. The Pakistan Industrial Act and laws and environment policies deals various issues separately, and they are isolated from each other. They need to be consolidated with the standardization in accordance with the national needs, which China did in very initial stage of late 90s. So very limited and highly varied compliance of ESG reporting is one example, which SDPI and PCI has done one workshop on this. Investment strategies, Pakistan investment strategies are yet to understand benefits of requirement of green transformation. The financial mechanism, bank policies, government regulations are to be transformed to support green investment and capitalization of availing of green fundings. Now coming towards the next question, which is regarding the policies. Before the policies, I want to speak in Pakistan perspective that Pakistan, somebody says the Pakistan per capita CO2 emission is too low, that is 0.8 to 0.9 metric tons, and global is 4.7 metric tons per capita, and Pakistan rank in GHG emissions is 135th. So why we need such heavy investment towards the green transformation? We need because we are vulnerable to the climate change. We need because the fundings are available green in shape of green financing. And one example is not utilizing that opportunity is analysis of World Bank sustainability funding, which include green funding. The Turkey has capitalized a commitment of over $11 billion. And while the Pakistan has committed only the $4 billion. And we can see the more vulnerable is Pakistan, but while Turkey is making good proposals, and this is one example. You can quote another countries also. Now, what policy alignments are needed? Number one is consolidation of relevant standards in one policy. Very recently, the EV government of Pakistan has announced the EV policy, and it has its own standards. The Pakistan Companies Act has its own standards. The environmental policy has its own standards, but they need to be consolidated by the one ministry, and one standard need to be implemented towards the SEZs and the industries of the Pakistan. The proposals to capitalize on green fundings available under Green BRI and World Bank is very important to prepare. And at this stage, I request Dr. Irfa to utilize, like Bahria University has the potential to prepare some proposals. We have been doing in maritime sector, and we can do this. So there is a need to prepare these good proposals and submit to the international funding institutions so that we can capitalize on these funds. And development and HR through training is especially for the SEC. There must be some standards and some compulsion for utilizing training and the trained persons. There is only one university, which is NUST, which has a started program on sustainability, but not any other. So HEC has to come up and give some incentive and get some requirement to the universities to start programs towards the sustainability, towards the environment. The Pakistan sectoral review of requirement of greening like electric power, transport, agriculture practices, water and solid waste management is very important. Pakistan's priority is not only the energy. When we talk about the low carbon, we start from the solar and wind energy and we stop there. But there are many other things. If we see the worldwide signature CO2 signatures.
Commodore Imran, just in the interest of time, if you can sort of,
last slide. Last slide. The review of financial mechanism and incentives in favor of green industry technologies like circular economy need to be supported through friendly investment strategy. The carbon tax visibility to be done. The technological collaboration in terms of EVs, waste management, reduction, agriculture CO2 emissions, especially the rice CO2 emission reduction, water yield efficiency. Science and technology parks are working, but they are working in isolations. We should learn from the China that they should work together and share the experience with each other. The identification of potential green industries to be included in SEZ, like low carbon steel through ship recycling, these identifications are very important, and it will help not only the Pakistan, but it will help to reduce the global CO2 signature. And for such projects, we can capitalize the availability of green fundings. That's all from my side. Thank you very much, Ubaid.
अपना माइक खोल लें, माइक आपका बंद है, जो माइक
Sorry, thank you so much, firstly, Commodore Imran, for these wonderful interventions, especially highlighting the key areas that needs to be there. But just taking advantage of the presence of Dr. Arfa, I believe a lot of points have, since the start, have been going towards her, and believe definitely, since POI is leading the whole process. Thank you so much, Dr. Arfa. So we'll be coming towards the chair remarks. So, I mean, let's sort of, but we would really be interesting. I mean, other than your interventions on the points that the fellow panelists have highlighted, how does the Pakistan's government envision the role of SEZs, particularly in the context of greening or the low carbon development in the country's long-term plan for these SEZs? And from the government, what are some of the very key priorities to ensure their successful implementation? And also, what is the government's stance on integrating environmental and social considerations into the development of SEZs? And believe Dr. Abid, Professor Abid has also sort of mentioned the potential collaborations where we can work together. So if you would also sort of like to, at the later stage, respond to those as well. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ubaid, for giving me this opportunity to share my views and ideas with such, high-level panel, and I actually learned a lot from this discussion. So very quickly, going through a few points. First of all, we have, as you mentioned, 9 SEZs under CPEC, but the total number of SEZs in Pakistan is much more. So we are also focusing on those SEZs and not just the 9 SEZs under CPEC. And out of these 9 SEZs, 4 are actually already in production, while we are now trying to develop the remaining 5 as well with full throttle. And so I would in a bit share a few progress points that the government has been doing. But before I move to that point, why SEZ? This was a very pertinent question raised by Mustafa in the very beginning. And Mustafa also raised a few very important, pertinent points, which I would like to very briefly touch upon. Why SEZs? Number one, because it is a time-tested model that China followed. It is a time-tested model that not only China, but other countries are also following, whether they label it as special economic zone or not. But this is the concept of developing centers of excellence. And specifically in countries where there is a resource constraint, and we cannot have the business conducive environment across the country, then the idea is to have these centers of excellence. And in Pakistan's context, another important point is the security concern. So now in the recent past that we see a targeted conspiracy against Chinese from security point of view, I would call it a targeted conspiracy. So it is not across Pakistan, the situation is not that bad. But when it comes to Chinese, it is a targeted conspiracy. And the answer partly is that these investments are done in the designated areas, at least to begin with, at least in the, for certain time period. So this makes SEZs even more relevant in the context of Pakistan. So be it, okay, I'll come to this point later. So in Pakistan, we have different varieties of SEZs. We have public sector SEZs, we have private sector SEZs, we have multi-sectoral SEZs, we have sole enterprise, single sector SEZ. We have all these different varieties. And the problems which are faced by these SEZs are also different. Not just, one size cannot fit all. So we cannot say this is the problem in Pakistan and this is how we can solve it. No, it's a little complicated situation, but we need to solve it. Okay, a few comments on the stage setting presentation, which was given by Ubaid Q. I would say that provision of you said plants, provision of plots on installment for foreign investors. It is not only for foreign investors. It is for everyone. So there is no incentive which is given in our SEZ which is particular to foreign investors. So anybody who purchases the plot, it is given on installments. And we have different models. So now we are focusing more and more on land lease policy. But in Punjab, specifically, we also have the other model. But even there, we have the down payment and then the installment, not only for foreign investors, but for our domestic investors as well. Another correction that I would like to make is that you mentioned markup support of 50% on the loans in SEZs. My apologies, but I'm not aware of any such incentives in SEZs. This might be some incentive given by the banking channels. However, it is not specific for SEZs. So just for the correction point of view. Very important points that Mustafa touched upon, green SEZs. Do we have the green supply chain? Now that is absolutely important. We need to have a green supply chain. Otherwise, we cannot have these green SEZs. And we can attract special incentives. And as our last speaker mentioned from Beria University, that there are like green funds that we can access. And by the way, I invite, excuse me for this, I invite Beria University technical people to please come to BOI, have these discussions with us, because we are working on the marketing plan of SEZs these days, and I would really want to benefit from your inputs. So now I want to share a few progress points. So for the first time in Pakistan, government has done a large-scale SEZ survey. A large-scale SEZ survey. So today, we have, for the first time, have a complete data of all our SEZs. How many enterprises are there? How many are in production? How many are under construction? How many plots are vacant? So we have a complete, authentic data of all our SEZs in Pakistan. This is the activity which BOI SIFC and Pakistan Army has done like coordinating with each other. We have done the drone surveys, the signals from Army side. We have a complete satellite imaging of all SEZs. So that now leads us to have a robust marketing plan for these SEZs. So the vacant land still existing in our SEZs, now we are now putting it up in the market. And we are now planning to have deeper discussions with Chinese government, and with other governments as third party arrangements. So we now want to have bilateral, multilateral, and third party involvement in marketing these patches of land within our existing SEZs. This has never been done before. And now, while we are doing this marketing plan, I would request Professor Sun and Professor Pang that we want your guidance, that how to make these more eco-friendly, how to adapt the measures to make them more environmental friendly. Another important point that I want to share with all the participants is that we are very shortly going to have the first business facilitation center in Islamabad, where we will be providing this one-stop service to the investors, not just the international investors, but to the domestic investors as well. Another important point is we are now focusing a lot on the optimization of our existing SEZs. As I just mentioned, we are making the marketing plan. We are also going to have more land vacated from the defaulters who have yet not started their production in our existing SEZs. We are focusing on G2G, B2B, G2B, and as I said, third-party involvement models, all these different kinds of models. So I would really request our August panelists to kindly connect with me later as well and become part of this progressive initiative that we are taking. And I will conclude by saying that in today's world, environmental performance and economic performance cannot be separated. We cannot do without having our low carbon production. So it's a mix of geopolitics, our domestic comparative and competitive advantages, and the global developments. We have to combine all these and then come up with a model for Pakistan, which should be labor-intensive industry focus, but with technological advancement of our traditional manufacturing, which is eco-friendly. So that is my conclusion of today's panel discussion. Thank you very much. And I'll be available for answering any questions. It'll be my pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Arpa, for highlighting the developments that are happening, and really looking forward, if at any stage, perhaps going forward, if the survey that has been conducted by the government of Pakistan, if we can also sort of look into what are some of its key findings, perhaps at a later stage, we would be love to do so. Definitely, will definitely facilitating if any collaboration or inputs coming from Dr. Ishan, Dr. Peng, and other academia experts that we have over here. I believe just one question, I believe, which Kainan Houghton has highlighted, that is that speakers have very rightly identified there are some key geographical spatial factors to a successful SEZ, especially logistics links like ports to access supply chains and markets. And at the same time, green SEZs have need for access to clean power infrastructure, which can also have geographical spatial limitations. Are these highly compatible in Pakistan's context? So if in case any one of our speakers would like to sort of respond to it, I believe Dr. Abid as well as Dr. Badshah sort of mentioned this. So if you would like to sort of respond to this question, Dr. Abid. Yes, please.
Yeah, first of all, I really appreciate the steps taken by the government, as mentioned by Dr. Iqbal. This is really encouraging for all of us, especially in the academic sector. Dr. Saeed Basha is also here. And in terms of my understanding, working with the very learned experts from China, and as also Dr. Imran mentioned, we are a team, so we can really bridge these gaps very quickly. But because we have the strength of many, we have a huge population with brilliant minds, and the best minds used to say. So I think the opportunity given to us and engagement of the students, the stakeholder is our future, is our students, our youth. If they are engaged properly into these kind of actions, I think there is no hurdle. I think the challenges, I used to say challenges and opportunities. I think that we can bridge those gaps very quickly. This is my point of view in terms of this specific, because they have to be green in future for their own survival. So I think they are very much learned, and they know all these what's happening in the global market. So they are very much aware of these things as well. So I think if the government is giving, mashallah, Dr. Arfa has given us a very good confidence. So we should sit with the youth, involving in these seminars and symposium, take their roundtable meetings, and I think the positive input comes up. Yesterday we were in Hyderabad, in Jamshoro Mehran University. They are working on many green initiatives at the moment. For example, in ComSets, we are working on many green initiatives, and we can share, we have from north to the south of our campuses. And if we go there, you can see so many things are happening, but they are not consolidated at the moment. So I think with these new coming up, new opportunities, we can really, as I said, we have to be mission oriented to achieve these. If we take, for example, 4 or 5 areas and we make those center of excellences, as Dr. Sabha mentioned, I think we have to give a target oriented approach, and the things will come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abid. I believe thank you so much for responding to that. One very key point, I believe, which we really all need to sort of consider here is the Pakistan's growing solar PV market and the solar PV boom we have experienced in the recent years. I mean, just to sort of quote very few numbers, that only in 2024, Pakistan, the import figures, which indicates that Pakistan imported roughly around like 16 gigawatt of solar PV capacity, and that is again almost like 1/3 of Pakistan's total power, and more than 1/3 of Pakistan's total power generation capacity. And these numbers are extremely staggering, and all of these are imported with a financial cost of roughly around like even $2 billion USD. So again, the solar PV, but what we really need to sort of understand is how to sort of ensure their quality as well. The rush is extremely encouraging, and believe that's where eventually localization of solar PVs. I've already seen some of the initiatives that are going on around SEZs, and we're talking about that. A lot of new Chinese companies are coming in, BYDs coming to Pakistan. A couple of Chinese companies more are coming to sort of highlight this, and this point is extremely important, especially when we're talking about the green or RE development space in Pakistan. And secondly, I believe, yes, Dr. Arfa, there's one more question that's for you in the chat. That is, if Dr. Arfa, can you talk about the current plan to prevent environmental harm in the SEZs? And how can we assess the large-scale SEZs? Okay, I believe the survey would become a bit later, but perhaps any sustainability plans that exist for the preventing any environmental harms within the SEZs?
Right. Currently, I don't feel very good saying that existing SEZs of Pakistan are not actually focused on environmental or eco-friendly measures. This is one very important point which is being highlighted by the survey. And we have already started taking action on this. The action is multifaceted. Number one, that the existing SEZs, they need to have their CETP in place so that we can, because we cannot actually now move ahead with this kind of environment ignorant policies. So we are from government side very aware of this. As I said, we have already started taking action on that, but currently I cannot boost that we have any SEZ where we have a very excellent environment friendly system in place, but you will very shortly find it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Arfa, and
So
thank
one
you
more
for
point, sorry,
yeah,
one more
please.
point. The new areas that we are developing, we are not developing any new SEZs, but the new areas within, while optimizing the existing SEZs, we are focusing a lot on this eco-friendly system. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Arfa. Any last one, because we're already 4 minutes above the time. So, Dr. Ishan, if you have any last comment to make, perhaps, because I believe Dr. Ishan is also sort of leading one of the large sustainability governance from the perspective of China's project. So, we'll definitely along and within that project there'll be a lot of developments happening, and we'll keep everyone updated. But any last points or any from your side, Dr. Ishan, before we sort of end the discussion?
Thank you, Bad. I just also want thank all the panelists for sharing their very insightful thoughts. And just very briefly, I think there is a huge potential to promote green SEZ in Pakistan. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that requires, if we want to learn from China, requires actually a process of mutual learning, also to think about how we can adapt Chinese experiences into local context. And also, I think just to echo the thing that other panelists have mentioned, so it's really, we have to really start to act and then try to find a way to advance our efforts. So I look forward to joining efforts with others, and hopefully we can make good progress in coming years.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ishan, for joining as well. And let me again thank all the esteemed panelists, especially Dr. Arfa, for her time and for highlighting the government perspective. And thank you so much, everyone, especially Dr. Pang actually had to leave for another meeting just before this. But thank you, Dr. Pang, Dr. Ishan, for joining us from a very different time zone. Definitely, Commodore Imran Professor Dr. Abid, Professor Said Badshah Saab, for extremely useful interventions. And again, we will be reaching out to Dr. Ishan and Chinese Academy Sciences for writing a one very key special chapter, perhaps a brief 4 to 5 pager, which will include in the report that we are sort of thinking of forwarding to the BOI by the end of February. With the key recommendations and suggestions which SDPI and BCI has been working on for the past 4 to 5 months. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we'll definitely keep you updated with all the developments that keep on happening. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.